really interested just to learn about who Amelia Earhart was as a person. I guess I have seen her in a history book before a long time ago, but hadn't thought much of her since. And this idea that she really was a celebrity of her time, and she was also a feminist, is very interesting to me. We talked about a word in yesterday's lesson, not the first day, but the second day of this article, and that word is the word mystique. And Peter described that word as being glamorous and mysterious. And we're talking here about the mystique of this heroine here.
Yes.
And I think that was really interesting for me to find out about Amelia.
Yeah, it's true. She led a very, very interesting life. Listeners, we don't have enough time to go through her entire background, but she did not come from a wealthy family, because her father actually, I think, lost most of his inheritance because of mismanagement. So Amelia Earhart had to work many, many different kinds of jobs in order to save up money and take those flying lessons, take those aviation lessons. And then the first time, I think, her first trip across the Atlantic Ocean, somebody else was supposed to do it. And then they got cold feet, and then they decided they didn't want to do it. So that female pilot that was supposed to do it and got scared, I think, gave the funding for her trip, helped raise the funding. So I think that just shows, like, if you really want to do something and you've made up your mind you want to do it, then you just have to keep at it. I think a lot of times when we look at successful people, we often forget one element is persistence. It's like we just see the end result is spectacular, but we forget that there's so much sacrifices they have to make along the way to achieve the results they want. So persistence is really important for success. And on that note, we have to start today's first reading.
Wallace hit play. The ocean floor on day 32 came to life as a grainy black and yellow image scrolling down the screen. Wallace froze the screen. There it was. He felt a chill, the awareness that this was the plane seen for the first time since 1937. They had a checklist for just this moment, and the first step was to shut down the ship's Starlink satellite connection. They wanted no one aboard to send or receive messages. The confidentiality of their discovery and its location was paramount. While Earhart's plane has no material worth, its value is incalculable, measured by both the prestige of finding it and by its enduring fame, which helps explain this deep obsession. Of course, it could be another aircraft. Until this is confirmed, skepticism is fair and needed, said Romeo, who hopes to provide the ending to this chapter of history. It is a story that needs closure, he said.
At the beginning of today's reading, we actually go back to the first days, the end of the first day's reading. And then we talk about how after 100 days at sea, the crew, they were ready to give up and they wanted to turn their ship back toward land. Before what happens, Peter?
Well, what happens is that Chief of Operations, Craig Wallace, pokes his head into the galley and where they're all eating dinner, and he tells them they have to come take a look at something. And what it is he's been able to recover some data from the submersible that we were talking about a few moments ago, that they thought had been corrupted originally. Just like, sometimes when you're copying or downloading a file around the office or around your home or wherever, sometimes a bit of bad luck and it gets corrupted. You can't use it anymore. They thought that's what had happened here, but in fact, they had now been able to recover the data that they thought had been lost of day 32, as it's called here in our article today, the ocean floor on day 32. So that's submersible going down almost 14,000 feet into the ocean each day, just records whatever it sees. And that's the grainy black and yellow image that they're looking at here. And this was for day 32. They thought it had been lost, but they were able to recover it somehow, and boom, behold, it seems that there it was, the airplane.
So they saw a plane, right? They saw a plane. We don't know which plane. We are not sure it's Earhart's plane. It could be another plane. But because the location is close to Howland Island, and Howland Island is where most experts believe that Amelia Earhart's plane went down, there is a chance that this was the Earhart plane. And so, Anne-Marie, what was the first thing they did? Did they call home and tell their wives or girlfriends, hey, we found the plane?
No, they didn't want any of that. They shut down the ship's Starlink satellite connection. So they made it so that nobody could send messages, nobody could receive any messages, so that this discovery could be kept top secret.
And why did they want to keep this confidential or secret?
Well, I would have to guess that it would be so that no one could make any claims that they weren't sure were true, or maybe even so that people couldn't get to this location and tamper with the evidence of this discovery. There could be a lot of different reasons. There could even be reasons such as the people who discovered it wanted to make sure that they got credit for it.
Yes.
There's so many different reasons that they could have done this.
Yes, I think that last point is the most important. They want to take credit for it. After all their hard work, I mean, anyone else could come in and if they knew the location, and it could be their claim to fame.
Sure.
They could say, we discovered it. And I was actually just talking off air. I think the owner of Starlink, Elon Musk, would be very happy to get there first. He always wants to be first, whether it's going to space or, making electric vehicles or making new rockets. Mr. Musk loves to win, and I'm sure he would love to get here first. So here, Peter, it says the confidentiality of their discovery and its location was paramount. Okay, can we talk about the word confidentiality?
Confidentiality, yeah, that means something that is said con with fide, faith, with faith. So when you tell someone something in confidence, you are telling them that they will not spread this, they will not tell it to another person. You are trusting them with something very important. And so what's very important in this case is the location, they believe, of Amelia Earhart's plane. So they want to keep it confidential so that only they know. And a great word to describe something that is very important is their paramount. Something that is paramount is absolutely essential, cannot do without it. And in this case, what they cannot do without is the confidentiality of their discovery.
So they need to keep the location completely secret. Well, Anne-Marie, here it says that Earhart's plane has no material worth because, of course, this plane doesn't work anymore. I mean, it's sunk down to the bottom of the ocean floor. It's not worth much money. But what is its value?
Well, its value is incalculable. That means that it is extremely large. It's unable to be measured. And the reason that it is so valuable is because there's a prestige that surrounds being able to find this missing aircraft. Now, what is a prestige? It is respect and admiration that's given to somebody or something, and it's usually because of its reputation.
So, and basically, if Tony Romeo and his company finds the Earhart plane, could you imagine all the business they can get for looking for other lost things underwater? Because they found the Earhart plane. They must be really, really good.
Yeah.
So this is a huge leg up. A leg up as an idiom just means that huge advantage over the competition.
Right.
Because everyone will go to Tony Romeo's company next time they're looking for something lost under the water.
It would be in the history books now whenever someone writes about Amelia Earhart and
Yeah.
how finally her plane was discovered in 2024 or 2025 by Tony Romeo.
That's true. Just like the first person who climbed Mount Everest, we all know the first non-local person was Sir Edmund Hillary.
Right.
So now we all know it's Edmund Hillary. He's the first person who climbed Mount Everest if you don't take into account the local people.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let's continue. But, Anne-Marie, we talk about the importance of proof, right? We're
That's
kind of
right.
scientific that way. We like things to be precise. But is it known for sure that this plane that they're seeing on that screen is the Earhart plane?
Well, it says here it could be another aircraft. We don't know. They need confirmation still. So until this is confirmed, skepticism is fair and it is needed. He hopes, though, that he can provide an ending to this chapter of history.
And it is a story that needs closure. I love the word closure because it's actually kind of obvious what it means to close, right? To close something. So closure just means the sense of something is final. It's finalized.
We usually use this word when we're talking about something that needs to end or has ended. Like, for example, maybe there's a relationship, a boyfriend and a girlfriend break up.
Right.
And you need to have closure over that relationship so that you can move on. Or maybe we use it when we talk about somebody passing away as well, getting closure from your grief as well.
That's true.
So the idea here is that something has ended or needs to end. And so you need to make
it final.
To make it final and so that you can move forward.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I was also thinking about during wartime, sometimes we have soldiers that go missing in action. We just don't know where they are. Like, they could be captured, they could be dead, and how difficult it is for the families of MIA soldiers. They don't know where they went. And that's why recovering the body is so important, to bring them home so the family can finally bury the body and move on with their lives. And in a way, this is what we kind of need for this plane. Or the people who are looking for this plane, they hope to bring the body home. Body here not being, of course, not Amelia Earhart's body, but the body of the plane. Peter, you had a point to make.
Right. I'm just thinking on a lighter note, another way we can understand closure is by recalling our discussion on day one of this article when we talked about mysteries and whether we like mysteries or not. And Anne-Marie was saying what she doesn't like are unsolved mysteries.
That's right.
Because they have no closure.
Exactly.
She has no closure when the mystery is not solved. So, yeah, closure.
I think humans really need closure. We don't like to keep things open-ended. We want to have an ending to things. And endings are probably good for us so that we can move forward. On that note, we need to move forward and get into our last reading for today.
Bringing her home. But will the mystery of Amelia Earhart ever be closed? Many people have wanted to be the first to know and solve the mystery, said biographer Susan Butler, whose East to the Dawn, The Life of Amelia Earhart, covers the breadth of her accomplishments. But I never understood why, when the most fascinating thing was the most wonderful life she led. Even if we find the plane, I don't think we will ever unravel the mystery of Amelia Earhart, said Mendelssohn, the novelist. Romeo is busy working out the logistics for returning to that remote corner of the Pacific in 2025. He is confident that the Electra is so well preserved in the icy depths that a photograph will show its radio registration, NR16020, lettered on its wings. To bring the plane to the surface, it needs to be structurally sound, and Romeo suspects it is, since Earhart was a skilled pilot who likely landed the plane on the water rather than crashing. She belongs in the Smithsonian, he said. She needs to come home.
So the question is, are we going to get closure on the mystery of Amelia Earhart? And here we have a quote from one of her biographers. Her name is Susan Butler. And what does Susan Butler say?
Yeah, Susan Butler, she has an interesting thought here. She says many people have wanted to be the first to know and solve the mystery of Amelia Earhart. But I, Susan Butler, never understood why, when the most fascinating thing was the most wonderful life she led. And so it's, I can resonate with that sometimes with Amelia Earhart in particular, as well as other historical figures who have a certain mystery around them, it's easy to get distracted from their accomplishments while they were still alive and become over-focused on the mystery of their death or disappearance or whatever it may be. I think at the same time, though, it is understandable why there is such interest in solving the mystery of her, and that's because the same answer, really, the wonderful life she led. That she did have this extraordinary life, and so that makes us, we can't help but be more interested in an unexplained ending to that life. It's, again, I keep going back to it, but it's Anne-Marie all over again. We need closure.
That's right.
On
the
more extraordinary someone or something is, the deeper our need for closure on what happened to it.
I think you raised an interesting point, Peter, because a lot of times when famous people pass, we often focus on how they passed or the last thing that they were doing right before they passed. But the reality is that people live long, full lives. She was, I believe, 39 years old, and that really happened in the last year of her life, and she had so many other accomplishments and stood for a lot more than just that one trip around the world. So I do agree with this quote, not just in relation to Amelia Earhart, but just people in general. It's important to remember that people's lives aren't just one thing that they do.
It's true.
We have to look at the overview of what they've accomplished in their lives and who they were as a person and, the journey they have gone on to get to that point.
It's really true, because when you talked about sometimes these celebrities, their death becomes the big thing we remember them by. I remember in 1997, I was in Canada. I was at university, and August 31, 1997, I can even say the date. That was the day that Princess Diana, she died in a car crash with her boyfriend, Dodi Fayed.
In 1997.
In 1997. I can still repeat the day, August 31. And basically, I think Princess Diana, just like Amelia Earhart, stood for so much. I mean, not that she was just a princess, but at the time when people were terrified of AIDS, she would go to visit AIDS patients, people who had HIV, and then she did a lot of humanitarian work, she campaigned against landmines, out of her personal unhappiness in her marriage, there was a lot of good that came out of her unhappiness. She really took care of marginalized people and did a lot of charity work that some of it still survives today. But when we think of Princess Diana nowadays, I think a lot of people focus on her death. Focus on the paparazzi, the paparazzi cars going after her car, and she's dying in a tunnel with her boyfriend. People overly focus on the death, but we forget that she also did a lot of good while she was alive. Also, I don't know what age she died, but probably around 39, 40. Also at a relatively young age. So someone is so much more than that final episode that we see on TV.
Yeah, sadly, I think that's always going to be the case with someone like that when they have an unusual death, either an unexplained death, like with Amelia Earhart, or a tragic, could have been prevented death, like with Princess Di. I think, a famous, extraordinary person who dies of old age, we'll still remember them, but there won't be that obsession almost with their death because their death was unremarkable.
Yes.
It was, more or less the way most of us die.
That's right. Well, let's continue. So here Mendelssohn, now we're going back to the other woman who wrote about Amelia Earhart. She says, I don't think we'll ever unravel the mystery of Amelia Earhart. So unravel here, it's just you basically come to understand, something that is very complicated. You understand what happened. You understand fully the process and what happened. So what is Tony Romeo doing these days?
Well, he is busy working out the logistics for returning back to that place in the Pacific where he thinks he may have found Amelia Earhart's plane. And he wants to do this in 2025, which is a little surprising to me because I would think, wouldn't you try to get there as soon as you possibly could? We're going to wait over a year, but maybe there's a lot to prepare and a lot of logistics to work out in order to take another expedition like that.
That's true, and probably a lot of money. He has to raise a lot of money because these expeditions are extremely costly. Maybe he needs more funding. Peter, let's try to end our program today. So let's try to land our plane smoothly and not crash into the water. So what does the last paragraph say?
Right. The last paragraph says that Romeo is busy working out the logistics to return to that remote corner of the Pacific. Remote, a nice word there, just means to be away from everything, to be far away from where most people are, or most things are, a remote location in the Pacific. He is confident that, he believes that the plane will be well preserved because it's so cold down, that deep into the ocean, some 14,000 feet down perhaps. And so that'll work to his advantage in bringing the plane up and helping us all see once and for all if the radio registration lettered on its wings, printed on its wings, is in fact Amelia Earhart's.
So here we almost might get closure. If this next expedition in 2025, they're able to bring that plane back to the surface, then there is closure. And we end the article with, she belongs in the Smithsonian. He said, she needs to come home. Of course, this Smithsonian is a very famous museum. Have you been to the Smithsonian?
I have, actually, yeah, a couple times in Washington, D.C. Just a nice, broad sort of American history museum, some science in it, a little bit of everything.
So hopefully Amelia Earhart's plane can be recovered and taken to this museum, the Smithsonian. And on that note, we need to end today's program. I hope you have enjoyed our 3-day airplane ride, a smooth airplane ride, I hope, talking about the journey to recover Amelia Earhart's plane and bring closure to this mystery. My name is Rebecca.
I'm Anne Marie.
I'm Peter.
Saying goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.